Okay, so tonight, my message is, it's a really short title. Hopefully it's not a really long message. It's not as long as it was last time, I promise. But the title of my message tonight is called Dash. Now I want to take you on a quick little journey. And I want you to close your eyes. Before we do that, how many of you have been to a cemetery for any reason? Okay, so you'll get this. Especially if you've been to an old cemetery. So close your eyes and imagine yourself in that cemetery, and you're walking to a specific grave. But as you walk by, you notice all these headstones. You've been there for funerals, you've been there to visit somebody. But as you're doing it, you do the same thing that everyone else does. You look at all the other tombstones. And what you notice is, there are three key, other than the name, there are three key pieces of information on that tombstone. There's a date, there's a dash, and then there's another date. And that's it. That's the whole marker. That's the whole thing. And that one little dash sums up someone's whole life. In this case, this person was born in 1948. They had a dash and they died in 2019. So their whole life is summed up in that one line, right? The 71 years, every birthday, every Christmas morning, their first date, their first kiss, their every argument they ever had with anybody, everything is summed up in that one single line. Every prayer they ever prayed, every time they laughed, every time they cried, all of it squeezed into that little dash, just that little dash. And that's what I want you to see tonight. And I want you to hold on to it as we go through the sermon. The first thing is, you don't get to pick that first date, right? You don't get to pick the first date. God assigns you that first date. 1948. That date was chosen for that individual. They didn't choose who they were born to. They didn't choose where they were born. They didn't choose when they were born. God assigned that date. And then if you look at the last date, you usually don't get to pick that one either, unless something goes haywire. You don't want to pick that date. So it doesn't matter. Do you take care of yourself? Do you eat healthy? Do you run? Do you walk? Do you go to the gym? It doesn't matter. God's going to pick that date for you. When it's your time to go, it's your time to go. But that little dash in the middle, that's yours. God gave that to you to do something with. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So I want to cover three key points. And the three things I want to talk about. One, your dash is short. No matter how long it is, your dash is short. And without God, your dash is empty. But with God, that dash is full, and it's full of purpose. So, let's get into it. So let's talk about your dash being short. And this is an area where David prayed a prayer, and this was in Psalm 39. David prayed a prayer that most of us would never pray, and probably don't really want to know the answer to. And it's the prayer he prayed to show God, ask God to show him how short his life was. In Psalm 39, verses 4 and 5, it says, "Show me, Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is nothing before you. And everyone is but a breath even those who seem secure. So who knows what a hand breath is? So everybody hold their hand up. Is it this? Nope, that's hook 'em horns. It's certainly not that. That's awful. Is it this? Nope, they call that a span. Hand breath is hold your fingers together like this. It's these 4 fingers. That's the length that God gave you for your life. And then he broke it down even further. He said it's just a breath. So that's the measuring stick that God gave us. And James said the same thing when he wrote James 4, verse 14. It said, why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. So if you can see this picture on the screen, it's somebody out in the cold, right? They take a breath in the cold. Everyone's been in a cold weather. They take that breath and it's just there for an instant and then it goes away. That's the span of our life. When you compare it to eternity, that's all it is. So it didn't make a sound, didn't leave a mark. And that's a pretty hard thing to think about. You didn't make a sound, you didn't leave a mark. Nobody even saw it. It was over in just a fraction of a second. But that's the exact words that James picked for us, for our life. And I don't say it to be morbid because our life is short. But most of us live like we got 150 years, guaranteed in writing, signed and sealed. We live like that. We never think we're going to die. But that's what we have, is that breath on that cold morning. That's the length of our time on earth compared to eternity. And God doesn't even measure time the same way we do. He said in Psalm 90, this is Moses speaking. This is towards, I think he was still in the wilderness, but towards the end of his life. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. You know what a watch is? It's 4 hours between midnight and 4 a.m. And that's 1,000 years to God. It's not even a good nap. So everything that happened in human history, think about Methuselah, right? Methuselah was 960 something years old when he died, or when he went on. That's like a day. That's the night when you slept. That's the span of his life that God measures. So a mayfly is known for having the shortest lifespan of any creature, right? A mayfly lives for about a day and then they die. To us, that seems short. That wouldn't even be a blip on God's radar. So if you think about it that way, where does that put your 70 or 80 or 90 or 100 years? Even Methuselah, 900 and something years. It's only a day to God. If you stacked all of that up against eternity, it would be a tiny, tiny little dot. You wouldn't even be able to see it. Even if you looked real hard in a microscope, you couldn't see it. So what are we supposed to do with that? Because it sounds pretty depressing. I got to be honest, it sounds depressing. But Moses went on further. And he said, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. That's verse 12. So he didn't say, teach us the number of our days so that we can worry about it, or that we can get disappointed or depressed about it. He said, let us know the number of our days so that we can become wise about it. And it's important. It's not it's important to know how short our life is, really, in comparison. Because when you think about it, our dash is short and our life is short. But if we have just a little limited resource, if you have $20 to your name, how quickly are you going to spend that? You're probably going to hold on to it, right? You're going to hold on to it till you absolutely have to use it. So that means we're going to stop wasting our time on things that won't matter in 5 years, much less 500 years. We're going to stop wasting that time. And the other cool thing about our life being short and our time being short is that if we're struggling with something, if we're hurting, that's only going to last a moment too. Psalm 30, verse 5 says, "Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." Right? Joy comes in the morning. It's just a short time. And Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians, 4th chapter, verses 17 and 18, said, "Our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them, and they will last forever." So troubles last for a moment, but glory lasts for eternity. So if you measure that against each other, it's pretty powerful. And Paul's not being flippant. He went through struggles himself. He didn't have an easy life. He was beaten, he was shipwrecked, he was stoned and left for dead. He learned that whatever's crushing you right now will only last for a period. It has an expiration date, but glory does not. Glory is for eternity. So that takes me to my next point. And the next point is, without God, your dash is empty and meaningless. I like this picture because I'm in it, actually. That's not why I like it. But I like this picture because it tells a story. This person has everything that they ever wanted, but people around them. Sitting alone at the dinner table, a long table, probably cost an arm and a leg. Sitting at a long dinner table, eating dinner by himself. Can't be all that great. And then I'm going to go to Ecclesiastes. And I think Ecclesiastes sums it up best. Because this is Solomon writing. He wrote this, I think, later in his life as well. Because he was the smartest man, the wisest man that ever lived. He was probably one of the wealthiest men, if not the wealthiest man that ever lived. He had everything. He had means to everything he wanted. He chased and got everything he wanted. And he had the money to do it. He could go after anything and get it. So he's a pretty good witness for this. So he tried pleasure, he tried building projects, he tried wine, he tried women, thousands of women. He tried work, trying to pour himself into his work. He tried learning, pour himself into his books, and none of it worked. And he summed it up like this. In Ecclesiastes 1 verse 2, he said, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Because he chased all those things without God. And the word meaningless here is the same Hebrew word that means vapor. So if you remember the picture from before, it's just vapor. He's saying he went and grabbed everything that he wanted, and it went right through his hands every single time. Didn't mean anything. And then he tells us about a man. It was probably the saddest man in the Bible. This is Ecclesiastes 6:1 and 2. He said, God gives some people great wealth and honor and everything they could ever want. But then he doesn't give them the chance to enjoy those things. He got everything he wanted. He chased the brass ring and he caught it. He's like that dog chasing the car, right? The dog chases the car. What's he going to do with it when he gets it? Doesn't fit. He doesn't know what to do with it. So he got everything on the list, the full bank account, but his chest was empty. He got the big house, but there was nobody in it. He got everything he ran after, and it didn't do a single thing for him. And some of you know what I'm talking about. You got the promotion, you got the new truck, you got the new house on the right street, in the right school district, and it still doesn't add up. And it's not really depression. It's the way it's designed. God designed it that way. Because we're not built to fill a void with everything under the sun. We're built to fill a void with the one who created the sun. And all that other stuff doesn't fill the void, but that doesn't mean it's evil. It wasn't made to fill the void that we're trying to fill. So it's not our enemy, that empty feeling. It's a signpost pointing us back to the church, back to God. Okay, which brings me to my next point. We can get this picture of me off the thing. With God, your dash is full of purpose. So if we go back to Ecclesiastes, Solomon wrote 12 chapters of all the dead ends, all the things that he chased, the wine, the women, the works, all the stuff he chased. But watch what happens when he finally gets God into his dash. He said it doesn't just get fuller, it gets a purpose. And it's an actual assignment with your name on it. He said in Ecclesiastes 12:13 and verse 13, now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors. This is what our dash was made for. So if we think about the lady that Jerry told us about, her dash was full. She wrote music, thousands and thousands of songs, because her mind was right. Her mind was on God. Her mind wasn't full of chasing the brass ring. It was full of chasing God. And Jesus said it even plainer in John 10:10. He said, the thief comes only to steal, to kill, and destroy. But I have come so that you may have life and have it to the full. That's the NIV version. He doesn't say, so I can have it longer. He said, full. He wants you to have a full or abundant life. And there may be somebody here that's living that long life, but it's not full. It's empty. You got the years in, but you don't have the life. And if that's you, we definitely want to pray for you tonight. Because Jesus is standing there waiting and offering you exactly the opposite of that. And he said, John wrote this in John 17, verse 3, "Now this is eternal life." This is Jesus talking. "That they may know you, the one true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." And that's Jesus' definition of an eternal life. It's not about how long, but it's about who you know. It's not something that starts when you die. If you know him and you've accepted him, it's already started. I'm living my eternal life now. And because of that, my dash and your dash has a job. In Ephesians 2, verse 10, it says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Jesus Christ to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." So before we were ever born, before we were formed in the womb, he had works for us to do. He already filled our dash with what we were supposed to do. He wrote those assignments down before we were created and then plopped us right down into the middle of it. And that's a great thing. And there are things that everyone in this room, only you are capable of doing. Only you are capable of doing. There are people that only you can reach. There's a family that only you can lead. There's a room that only you can walk into. James, when you were on the battleship, could anybody just get on the battleship? You had to be part of the crew, right? So nobody could get on that battleship unless they were part of the crew. So not anybody could just walk in and share God with them. And Paul, in Colossians chapter 3, verses 23 and 24, said, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters." And that "whatever" is a big word because it encompasses everything. But a lot of us think our dash only happens when we're in this building. That we're only serving or giving when we're in this building. And we're not in this building very often. Sometimes it seems longer, especially when I'm talking. It seems like ages. But it's not very long. So that's not what Paul said. He said whatever. So whether it's cooking dinner for your family, or going grocery shopping, or just driving up 288, running a register, sitting in a meeting. This one hit me hard this week because I was in a meeting on Monday that I did not want to be in. Sitting in a meeting you didn't want to be in. Do it for him, and it stops being a chore or ordinary, and it starts being worship. If you go do that with his best intent in mind, then it becomes worship. So we don't need a bigger platform, we just need a different audience. But be careful when you do this. There's 2 ditches on that road. And it's easy to fall into some of those ditches. The Bible does talk a lot about prospering. And people run into the prosper ditch on both sides, right? But in Joshua, book of Joshua says, "You shall meditate on it day and night, for then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success." Meditating on it day and night. And Psalm 1, verse 3 says, "The person is like a tree planted by the streams," this tree planted by the streams, which yields its fruit in season, and its leaves do not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Those are the real promises of prosperity. And the ditches that you can fall into, the first one is turning God into a vending machine. And we've talked about this a sermon or two ago. If we put our obedience in the slot, pull the handle, out comes a new truck, or a boat, or a new house. But the Bible blows that all to pieces. Just look at Job. He was the most righteous man of his time. God said so himself. But he lost his family, he lost his children, he lost his health. Everything he owned, he lost. And Paul was a righteous man. He was beaten and jailed and shipwrecked and hungry, bit by a snake, and eventually executed. And he called that all gain. So don't fall into the prosperity trap, but understand what prosperity is. Ditch 2 is treating salvation like death insurance. The pastor talked about this last week, maybe the last couple of weeks. You may have prayed the prayer at church or at a church camp or, some time ago. You signed your card, got your ticket punched, and now you've been coasting for the last 30, 40 years. I learned a quote this week that I really like, and it's, a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are made for. I can't remember what the guy's name was that did that. I should have put his name up there. I think it was Shep or something. So a ship tied up in the harbor is safe. It's not going to get hit by the storm. It's not going to get in the stormy seas. It's not going to, capsize out to sea. It's going to be safe. There's no risk. But it's also completely useless because it was made for a purpose. And there's a lot of believers all around the world, and particularly in the U.S., in the Western culture. I think because of the way we've taught salvation in the past, that they're docked in harbors all over the place. They're saved, they're secure, and they're sitting in the church, tied off, and going absolutely nowhere. And that's not the plan. It's Jesus, right before he left, right before he ascended to heaven, he didn't say stay put. He said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. He said, go. He didn't say sit. He didn't say sit in the pews. He said, go. And when he sent the 12 out before, if you remember in Matthew chapter 10, he kind of gave a description of what it means to go. He said, as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, and cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. I used to always gloss over that last part, but I found that this sermon spoke to me a different way. Freely you have received. God has poured gifts into each and every one of us. And if we're holding them to ourselves and not sharing them with everybody, that's not what they're meant for. We're not a warehouse. We're not a storage unit. I got a bunch of storage units. Those gifts aren't there. That's That's a ship docked up in the harbor. God didn't put those gifts in us to be a warehouse. We're ships. He put it in us to take it somewhere and share it with other people. And you can't do any of that tied to the dock. So, in that, I want to make sure I point out, if you said that prayer, even if you're sitting in the church or not, you're not going to hell. But you're not going anywhere else either, frankly. It's not a full dash. It's a parked dash. It's a tied up dash in the harbor. The road between those two ditches that we talked about, first ditch is making God a vending machine. The second one is treating salvation like fire or life insurance, is Paul. He said, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Jesus Christ, my Lord. And this man wasn't rich. He wasn't comfortable. He wasn't safe. You would never call his dash empty. He was full. His dash was full. So if you really want to know what prospering looks like, go back to Psalm 1. And it's that tree. And I know AJ stepped away, but if you remember that tree, it's got its roots in the water. It's not a tree that has never seen a dry summer. That's okay, Sam, don't worry about it. It's not a tree that's never seen a dry summer. It's a tree that has its roots in something that never runs out. So, I think we're making good time because I'm about to close. But I want us to go back to that cemetery. So if you close your eyes, picture yourself back in that cemetery. And one day, I don't know when, neither do you, but one day somebody's going to be standing at a stone with your name carved on it. They're not going to talk about the first date. They don't care. Nobody ever talks about your birthday at the cemetery. They're probably not even going to talk about that last date. What they're going to talk about is your dash and what you did with your dash. And there may be a couple of different types of people in the room tonight. I don't know, but I'm going to wing it. We're going to say you've been saved, but you're sleepwalking. You're not living your fullest dash. Or you're hurting. And you need to understand that your dash is short. Your dash is not long. So your hurting will go away soon. So, remember that the morning is coming, and it always comes, and joy comes in the morning. And also remember, you didn't choose that first date. God hope us that we never choose the second date. But the dash, that one's yours. So what are you choosing to do with your dash?